guys, and you are not scared.
Not at all.
Okay,
Okay.
Exactly.
I think we are live now. Right.
So, how are you, Sandeep? How are you feeling today?
Yeah, it's a weekend, right? So feeling good. So like we watched a movie in the afternoon with my wife. So it was a relaxing weekend to start with.
Nice, man. Nice family time. So, how is the weather at California?
It's been cold for last 4 or 5 weeks.
Hmm.
So it's a bit hard to go out and spend time. Otherwise, we just have to stay indoors just to not to get caught with something, some cough or cold.
So, is it like less than 5 degrees? I mean, in centigrades.
Yeah. No, like 10, less than 10. About less than
Okay,
10. Yeah.
got it. So, so here is my co-host, friend, colleague, manager, mentor, whatever Rishi. So, like to give intro about Rishi, right? He's one of the most positive persons that I know, and he encourages everyone. Uh, and I'm always happy to work with him and do shows like this or whatever you call it, right?
Nice. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Rishi.
Same here, Sandeep.
So Rishi Sandeep, with Sandeep, I worked with him at Cubal. Though we are not present at the same place, we are all counterparts. Like we both are counterparts. I am in India and he's in US. So he once visited India office, Bangalore. There we are very much connected. And as far as you know, Sandeep is a very curious person, and he go to any level to debug any issue that he's given. And we both have one common love for sport, though I enjoy it passively and he enjoys it actively, which is tennis. And I hope to play someday good tennis with you, Sandeep. That's my that's in my bucket list now.
Sure. Looking forward to that. Yeah. Yeah. You should come to US. Like I wish that for you.
Man, you have Indian, you are an Indian, you can come here anytime, so come here, let's see.
No. I'm hoping something new for you. So like I will definitely come like every year and now. So I'm just hoping new thing for you that way.
Hopefully, man, like universe listens to it and makes me do it someday.
Sure.
In a good way.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so again, like since I worked with you in support, right, Sandeep, I know you were there for like 2 to 3 years at Cubal.
Yeah. About 2 years. I was there at Cubal for about 2 years.
Right, so then you switched to data engineering profession. And how did the transition actually happen from support to data engineering?
Yeah. I'll take few steps back and like why I was into like support, right? So during my masters, I've taken few courses on big data, and I find it interesting because it touched multiple components of the system, be it Linux or programming language or algorithms. So I really find it interesting. But initially, I struggled to get a job like on data engineering right away. So like in the process, I got an opportunity at Cubol for as a support engineer, and there, I mean, like for the people who are like very new to Cubol, right? So it's a big data platform, right? So they provide big data as a service on the cloud. So there I have like spent about like 2 years to so they main like I was part of a support technical support team. So where customers of the platform report multiple issues around the platform, big data engines such as Presto, Spark, Hive, and our job was to resolve the issues, and like mainly to like give a response, and then resolve those technical issues in a reasonable time, so that customers are always satisfied. Now the transition, right? So am I'm always interested in programming. So even while working at Cubol, I was like mostly like inclined to take any issues on any technical tickets on Spark. So in a way that that kept me going to learn Spark. And after after working for 2 years at Cubol, I thought I looked for a data engineering role similar based on Spark in Cubol, but I couldn't get one, so I had to move on into a company
Mhm.
and found a role in a company called Nielsen as a data engineer.
Nice. So, what preparation that you had to do to to get the new role?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I had to sharpen my programming skills, especially that is, and then so while working at Cubol, I had to I could see lot of issues, be it writing some Spark code snippets or looking at some issues with clusters. So I've seen all that, right? So so I was covered in that way. I got a Spark knowledge there, and I also had yeah, like uh, definitely we have to say querying skills also very much required, like SQL. Yeah, those are the three things I prepared in the transition.
Nice. So, how is your role currently look like? What is your daily routine? Maybe you can take us over the regular tasks that you perform in a day.
Sure, sure. So I'm currently working as a senior data engineer at a company called Roku. So it's a US based company, and so Roku is a a streaming platform. So they are a streaming OS on TCL and a few other manufacturers, right? TV companies.
Mm-hmm.
So so people watch a lot of content on streaming. So it's like think of Roku like a Google Play Store in Android, right? So
Got
they
it.
are a platform on TV.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So they host multiple apps like Netflix, Hulu, ESPN, like lot of apps, right? Like you can watch on smart TV, and also you can do you can also tune into live TV and all other things, right? So
Right.
Roku is a like a platform company which facilitates all these things.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. So, yeah, like you already given an example of Play Store. So it also something like what Fire Stick provides.
Yes.
Like
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
have their Silk browser or other platforms. Okay.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So Roku is like a they're a OS, right? If you buy a TCL TV now, like Roku is coming up with their own branded TVs. But
Mhm.
otherwise, so they're a TV OS, and they also provide a stick if you want to let's say if you want to have Roku OS on other TV, right? You can just connect using a stick, just like Fire Stick.
Got it. Got it.
Now
Yeah.
coming to my role, so I'm part of a team called ACR
Mm-hmm.
in Roku, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just one side of the Roku company is like streaming, right? So all the apps that I mentioned. In other area, right? On TVs we can watch content via satellite, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
a dish connection, or in India Airtel Digital TV, or some other digital provider, satellite provider, right?
Got it.
Right, just like that, people watch a lot of linear content. They call it linear TV, right? So
Got
one
it.
is
Yeah.
streaming TV and other one is linear TV,
Mm-hmm.
right? So on linear TV, so we have a intelligence on TVs to recognize the content automatically,
Right.
right? Right, so let's say
Right.
you're watching a movie, right? Let's say you're watching some some Avatar movie, right? On some channel, right? Let's say, right, on
Mm-hmm.
HBO,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we get images of those viewings. So on our side, right, on our servers, we can recognize user is watching avatar from time A to time B, like that,
Got it.
Okay.
right? So this is our this is the automatic recognition we do on our side. uh, for us, we receive raw logs which says these viewership details,
Right.
right? So
Okay.
okay, yeah, so like our job is mainly to process those raw logs, to say, give out some insights like popular channels, programs, right? Every day and every hour. That is our main motive, main intention.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, like I can just say that most of my responsibilities are include like working on data pipelines, and
Mm-hmm.
also like while designing data pipelines, also think of validations that we can do, and
Hmm.
what are the components that we can utilize, right? So it's mostly
Right.
data pipeline discussions, and also implementations of them, and validations, etc.
Got it. So when you said you try to like take images as the input and try to recognize the content for it, you control only the linear content, or you also control anything, like let's say something is playing on Netflix, the viewer is visiting watching something on Netflix, do you also get the information or content details for those streaming content also?
So on streaming side we actually have to obey app permissions. Let's say
Hmm.
you are watching Netflix, right? So we have a deal, not a deal, but a restriction from Netflix that we cannot fingerprint what user is watching on Netflix. So
Hmm.
even though we have a
Hmm.
capability, we should not recognize that,
Got
Okay.
it.
right?
Got it.
Right. So we
Yeah.
can only recognize only few apps and few things on streaming side, but on linear side we can detect everything.
Got it.
Interesting. So just to my understanding, right? Like it's kind of your some sort of agent is running, which is aggregating this images or whatever the data, and then emitting to your centralized, sending through that your server, right? And then you're
Exactly,
processing that
exactly.
in. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So on our upstream team, like our upstream team does that aggregation, right, at a minute level and at a hour level. Uh, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
they send that very verbose log to us via S3 bucket, and we process that in Spark in batch
Got it.
fashion. Yeah.
So by
Interesting.
the time you start processing, it's already on S3, and your input is mostly S3.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Got it. So how do you use the content that I understand you go through the logs or whatever the content, that information that you got, but what is the end use case of it?
So our use case, right? So let's say on linear side, let's say you are saying there is a popular channel, right? So let's say there is a channel, right? Let's say CBS, right? CBS is a news channel here, right, in US.
Mhm.
So let's say in this hour, CBS is the most popular channel, right? So what
Mhm.
advertisers do, right?
Mhm.
They will try to play more ads on CBS for the next 1 week, right? Or some X period of days, right?
Got it.
Uh, yeah, so they might do that on the linear side or streaming side, but we will give that to advertisers or publishers.
Okay.
Okay. So is it
Okay.
something similar to TRP, which we call, right? Like here, like which program, like in 9 to 10 hours slot, right? Which news channel is being watched the most, right? And on that basis, here in India, they call it something TRP, that okay, this channel is leading and number one for this prime hour slot, something like that. And
Exactly.
that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
okay.
yeah. You're right. Yeah, exactly.
I
TRP,
see.
yeah, television rating points. Yes, exactly. That's right.
Hmm.
Do you also target the streaming content? Let's say you want to target an ad when someone is watching. I don't think Netflix allows it, but let's say if Prime Video is allowing ads in the future, and do you also target like the streaming app ads as well?
Yes, yes, yeah. That is our, I can say, that's our bread and bread butter of our entire platform, right? So that's a
Mhm.
huge revenue for us. So we
Mhm.
kind of run lot of ads, right? When user is watching a particular thing, right?
Mhm.
So our data supplement those ads driven technology.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it you only target mostly the linear content if that is the case.
Um, so it's actually, it's hard to adjust the advertisements on linear side, and it's also a trend that people are moving to streaming, right? So
Correct.
they I mean, so the company itself uses linear insights to better target on streaming side.
Got it.
Oh,
Understand. So this might be something like that we see cricket matches and Hotstar. Maybe you can target the ads there. Whatever like user has already viewed on linear content. Then
Exactly, yeah, that's right, yeah.
makes sense.
interesting. Another question is like, so what kind of data format like is there? Like once it reaches to S3, is it JSON blob or like or something proprietary you have?
So we use a format called LTSV, right? Labeled tab separated files, right? And it's kind of a, readable format, but it's in compressed format. We read the data in LTSV form and produce the data in Parquet format.
Got it. Any idea how upstream actually generates the data to S3? Do they use any streaming services like
Um,
Kafka, Kinesis, or something like that?
I think they use Kafka.
Mhm.
But yeah, we haven't been much exposed to that thing. But it's because it's a very, sensitive to company, right? So like
Mhm.
only, few set of people only upstream knows more details about that.
Understand. Understand. So, I mean, being a data engineer, like I know your title also say software engineer, but how it is different from the typical backend software engineer versus a software engineer who is a data engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that right now, as a software engineer, you need to, design a software component, right? So you mostly, focus on users, and then come up with some, nice design, and then do the implementation, also making sure that, UAT and few other details are, taken care, right, in say, typical software development.
Hmm.
Whereas in, data engineering, you have to, the data itself is gonna, empower stakeholders, right? So the idea is to, design data pipelines which provide better insights, right? So, and you have to also, be aware of some tooling, and
Hmm.
also querying scales, in addition to, all the programming and, things you have to do, right? So in
Right.
simple words, you can say that, right, as a data engineer, you mostly deal with the data in and out. So
Hmm.
your entire work is around that.
Got it.
Nice. So just to follow up, right? Like I'm just trying to understand the whole thing. So once the data reaches to S3, then what next? Like how does your uh, general pipelines looks like uh, from there?
Yeah, so we make sure, our cadence is hourly, right? So that's frequent. We read the data and process it, and, produce the outputs, and also we populate certain, dashboards, right? um,
Mhm.
right, so the data, right? So we use airflow as the orchestration, right? For orchestration, like every hour the job should be triggered, If the data is present on S3, Airflow job is triggered hourly, and that processes the data in Spark. And we use AWS EMR for processing the job in Spark, and
Got it.
that will run like within 1 hour, so that like next hour data can be processed, right? We
Okay,
make sure that runs within the hour, so that we do required scaling.
got it.
And yeah.
So in an hour, the data should be available for the end users to query or create dashboards or anything.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, within like we'll try to make sure that data is processed within hour, and then
Mhm.
there is another system which
Mhm.
delivers the data to subscribed customers, right?
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
like processing and delivery, they're decoupled that way. So
Got it.
processing takes care of processing within hour, and then as soon as the data is arrived in output buckets, right? So the deliver system will deliver the data to, let's say, we have a platform called Big Data Platform,
Mhm.
and like multiple teams in the company uses that. So we mainly deliver to that particular platform, and then on top of that there are some dashboards which automatically like yeah, like basically you can say that, right? So on this platform, we periodically add the partitions so that data is populated on the dashboards automatically.
Okay. So one question on the processing, right? Like you said you process hourly, but you also have like any other triggers to process the data on a daily basis or monthly basis.
Yeah, yeah. So we do have some like daily jobs, right? Daily
Mhm.
jobs and weekly jobs, right? So let's say
Mhm.
on a daily basis, how many people are watching, how many people are active, right? So let's say
Right.
somebody is active, they might have like switched off TV and they never watched, right? So we have to uh, actively measure daily uniques and weekly uniques and monthly uniques, so that like we will we can measure our growth, right? So
Mhm.
there are jobs dedicated for daily and monthly and weekly to get those unique numbers.
Got it. Uh, Rishi, have anything?
So just to like understand, right? Like reading from S3 and then processing again, putting in the S3, right? And then your big data platform is kind of generating the report, or you are putting it to somewhere else after the processing.
Right, right, yes, exactly.
Okay, okay.
So maybe a curious question on big data platform, right? Is it something that is internally developed? Uh, like how does it look like? Maybe like to get an idea, or do you have some vendor that actually like powers the big data platform?
So we use open source project called Superset. So
Ah,
on
okay.
Superset,
Okay.
you can query the data in Hive or Presto or Redshift, right? So you can
Mhm.
host multiple engines, right? Behind the
Right.
scenes, there is a team which facilitates all these things. So it's a Superset is a big like big data platform we use.
Okay. So it's kind of an analytics platform, but your destination is always a S3.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, how is it handled is depends on how big data platform team like orchestrates it. Is it right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like whenever let's say you query a Presto query or Hive query, and the queries are redirected to those dedicated clusters,
Mhm.
and behind the scenes they query the underlying S3 data and tables. So
Mhm.
and data is fetched, and they are like shown on the UI.
So yeah, this like brings up another question, like your big data platform team is your end user, or the users of like dashboard like business analyst or data analyst will be your like end users. My
So
question is more interested in whom do you actually work with, like day in and out.
yeah, yeah. So our goal is to like keep the data as open as possible and as centralized as possible. So that's why we have this big data platform, and
Mhm.
which is accessible to everybody in the company as a read only thing, right? So that is like primary user, and also as a second user, right? So from those like let's say as soon as data is arrived in the big data platform, so there are other teams who create more pipelines, right? More data
Mhm.
pipelines on top of that,
Mhm.
to get only like subsets of data. Let's say this is a tax season in US, right? So
Mhm.
let's say so TurboTax is a a very popular tax provider, right? Tax consultant in US, right? So
Mhm.
they will be running some campaigns.
Okay. Okay.
So right, so they'll have some campaign IDs, right, or some advertising IDs, right? So they want to see the reach, how many people viewed my ad, right? So based on that need, so there will be some teams who give out that campaign data to TurboTax, let's say, right, advertiser. So they use some other platform like uh, I for okay looker, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
they filter the data, right, from this big data platform, and give out subsets of the data to share with the advertiser via looker.
Got it.
Yes. Okay. So, how you have designed this pipeline? Is it okay? It's just this Spark processing, I feel. Okay.
Yeah, like Airflow is for orchestration and Spark
Hmm.
is for processing. Yeah, EMR is mainly for auto scaling the clusters.
I see.
Got it. So, how are you writing? Like, which language you are using to write code in Spark? Is it Scala, Python, or you're just using SQL?
We use a lot of Java Spark. Surprisingly, we have started with Java Spark, so and like we are continuing to use that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like for we also use like Scala Spark, that is mainly
Mhm.
for some ad hoc analytics.
Got it. Got it. So it is also frequent that you need to define UDFs, and how, or if you do, what language do you like prefer to write your UDFs in?
I mean, like we actually like in JavaScript, right? Like you don't have to write UDFs. You can just define functions right away and
Mhm.
use them in transformations or actions somewhere. Like when we have to work with Scala, right? We then write UDFs. Yeah, like frankly, I have like very less experience with working with UDFs, and also like industry wide, it's a bit. Discouraging thing to use UDFs, right? Because of serialization, heavy serialization, and all.
Yeah, Spark also do not have an understanding what goes in your code, and it cannot optimize your processing. So yeah, it's highly discouraged. But uh, people try to write in Python, which actually has a performance implication. So that's why usually they suggest to write in Scala if they have to write. So that's the intention behind asking that question.
Yeah, yeah, good, nice. That's right. Yeah.
So like how does your feature development look like? Like whom do you interact with to develop a feature? Like who are again, the end users are big data platform only, as you said. But how does the cycle look like? How long it will take usually? How do you take the requirements?
We do quarterly planning, right? Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? So now we are in Q1, right? Middle of kind of a middle of Q1. So towards the end of the quarter, we plan for next quarter, right? Let's say for Q2, we plan in March, right? We do like product does the planning,
Hmm.
and we also propose some new feature improvements or some some issues that we want to have it in the system so that it improves our life, right, day to day life. So that sort of things, like we bucket them, right, under multiple categories based on the priority, based on ease of use, etc., right? So like almost like in the last month of the quarter, we do next quarter planning, right?
Hmm.
Product leads that, and they come up with some set of requirements based on priority or multiple things. and then we give out our efforts, right? How many weeks that will take, right? So depending on that, we do quarterly planning, and then um in the actual quarter we start executing them. It's mostly the features will be around coming up with a new data pipeline, or adding some new features to existing data pipeline, or fixing some things. That will be the typical feature development that we do.
So how would the new feature would look like, right? Is it usually like I want to add a column, or I want to get a data in certain field type? uh, how is it actually in general sense?
so
What
let,
type of this?
so let's say I can explain with an example, right? So recently, let's say recently, we have come up with a new type of data feed, right? It
Hmm.
says, let's say, on linear TV we can replace an ad. Okay, so let's
Okay.
say you're watching, let's say, some football ad. Okay, but
Hmm.
you're not a sports fan, right? You are a, let's say you like, cool drinks, let's say, right?
Got it.
So what I want to do, I will replace your ad with cool drink ad, right? Let's say Pepsi, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And let's say Rishi doesn't like, cool drinks, and he is a sports fan, right? So for Rishi, I will keep sports ad, right? So this
Hmm.
sort of replacement, or keeping the same ad, we have that intelligence on linear TV side, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so in this quarter, I have developed a data feed which gives out these details. On Rishi's TV, like the sports ad was supposed to play, and it is played. It is being played because he's a sports fan. On Pradeep's TV, we replace that, right? So this sort of granular details, we are giving to customer, so that they will do their own tweaks on that side. So this is a new data pipeline, right? So this sort of requirements would come up, and I work on the new feature, right? Next
Okay.
is next type of thing, right? So
Hmm.
in a let's say, there is an existing data feed, and the users of that particular feed are not utilizing all the columns, right? And
Got
it's too much to carry on S3, or too much to deliver, right? So we try to cut out some fields, or add some fields based on some discussions. So that is also second type of requirement that we work on.
Okay. So you either add, truncate, or transform the data as you want, like
Exactly,
as.
that's right, yeah.
Got it. So your end users will be the publishers who are actually using the data to generate ads.
That's right, exactly, yeah, yeah. Those are primary users, and also secondary users are within the company. Yes.
Got it.
So, how much time is spent developing this new pipeline versus maintaining the existing, whatever the process you have, or maintaining the SLAs, right? Like as you said, you have the 1 hour SLA to make sure it reaches to destination.
Yeah, for sure, I can tell that. So when we do quarterly planning, right? So we try to spend 80% of time on feature development, and 20% of time on maintaining the existing data pipelines. And we try to measure roughly. We don't have any standard way of doing it, but let's say we are like spending more time on maintaining the pipelines.
Mhm.
We try to come up with some sort of enhancement to reduce the time.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit more on that part, right? Like what kind of optimization you do, or like whenever you hit the scenario that you are spending more time on just managing the existing process, uh, what kind of metric do you look, or like just any sort of detail on that part?
Sure. Let's say like we are like running out of memories, right? So when we are working with some data, so we try to do better auto scaling, right? And we try
Hmm.
to publish more metrics to Datadog, right? Which is a monitoring system, right? and we try to uh, optimize any processing processing that we can do, so that the SLA is always met, right? So this sort of things, right? We would work on them.
So it means like the underlying infra, right? For example, EMR tuning and everything that also fall in your bucket, right?
That's right, exactly, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We have a static cluster, like there is also a static cluster which doesn't support auto scaling, right? But if there is a surge in the incoming data, we
Mhm.
try to have a bigger static cluster, so that issues like this, right, are avoided, like out of memory, or nodes losing the data, right? That sort of issues are avoided because of replication.
Got it. So, I mean, that brings another important, like, interesting question about monitoring. So, any alerts that are coming to you through Datadog, like if any processing fails, uh, like any job that is not working as expected on time, like it's not meeting the SLA.
Yeah, yeah. So like any error, right? Any error we get in Spark, right? Everything is, from an executor point of view, everything is propagated to driver. So
Okay.
we
Yeah.
we we monitor driver logs via
Mm-hmm.
Datadog, and
Mm-hmm.
if we see any error entry in driver log,
Mm-hmm.
Datadog immediately alerts us on Slack, and on phone via PagerDuty.
Got it. Got it. So, how, like, since we talked about the feature development, how do you actually measure success of your feature development?
Hmm. So it's mostly we try to stick to the design, right? Data design, and that gives it that tells us that okay, we have delivered the feature according to the data design, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is like one way of measuring. And also second thing, right? So we try to have as many validations as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
all of them are passed after the development. So like those are the two main things we make sure.
Got it. So, is it like I'm more interested in who drives end to end. Like, let's say, product team is coming up with a new requirement, and are those the ones who actually, like, complete the, what do you say, the tracking end to end? Like, I need to work with the data engineering team, I need to work with big data platform team that is making sure that the data is there and it is available to the end users. Is it like some program managers involved or project managers involved?
I mean, like
Or
in our company, like mainly product drives end to end. They
Mhm.
give out all high level design details. Like
Mhm.
this should be the schema, and this should be the input data we are expecting, and this should be the output format we want to be. And like there are some these are the stakeholders that receive the data,
Mhm.
and they try to give out as much as possible, right, at a high level. And we
Okay.
come up with some low level design. Okay, we want, okay, the data comes in this, data comes out in this. Okay, so we can we use Spark, or can we use normal SQL engine to read the data and process it and send it out, right? Or we want a better system, right? Or do we want to send the data real time, right? So we come up with low level design, and mostly like monitoring and alerting are all kind of fixed, right?
Mhm.
Because at a company wide, right, they'll have a like deal, right? Otherwise,
Mhm.
like we mostly try to plug in our processing engine based on the requirement, and then come up with the low level design.
Mhm.
So and then once we'll just uh, discuss that with the product, and once they
Mhm.
give a sign off, we will do the actual implementation and
Right.
validation at the same time.
Got it. So why I'm asking this is because when I worked at Amazon, so let's say there is a product feature that I want to roll out, uh, they will they will come up with the design. They know who are the stakeholders or who are the teams that need to develop it. But once they have charted the plan, they will actually hand it over to TPM team, which is actually technical program management team. So they basically track the timelines and the interaction between all the teams that they planned the feature should look like. So that's why I'm asking, like, is there anyone who actually like counting on the timelines, making sure that they are on time to reach their goal, uh, something like that.
Got it. Yeah, we don't have that sort of team.
Mhm.
Mostly, product comes up with the feature, and we discuss with them on the progress, bi-weekly. So we will think, like they will let us know if we have to, expedite certain things or deprioritize certain things. So that way, like we keep in touch with them, and
Mhm.
they track it until the end. That way.
Understand. uh, Wish you have any follow-up questions.
Uh, no, I think not on this.
So, like, what are the typical challenges that you face while using Spark or Airflow, or even for Datadog? Like, is it like anything technically difficult to understand, or like maybe people do not have enough knowledge or something like that? What are the challenges that you actually face while working with this, uh, like tech stack?
So I'm like, I find always, Spark failures are intimidating, right, for any
Mhm.
new user or intermediate level of user, right? So I find it like very difficult at the beginning, right? So let's say you are running out of memory and you see that job is slowed down on particular action, and
Mhm.
for that, if you are not aware, if you just monitor Spark driver logs, it won't be enough. You have to go to drive up, job UI and see that are the executors progressing. If not, what could be the problem? You have to dig a bit deeper, right? So you have to see whether there is a GC time that is increased, right?
Mhm.
Or there could be some issue, right? Just because of that, there might be some deadlock, right? So you have to deal with all these kind of problems in Spark, right? So Spark here comes in handy.
Mhm.
uh, and there is a chance that if you observe, if you observe Spark executors are running out of memory, right, like in some of the instance you have to see if you can increase the memory overhead, or if you can increase the executor memory, right? Or you can if you can reduce the parallelism, right? This sort of
Mhm.
problems, I have faced mainly with Spark.
Mhm.
So depending on the root cause, you have to uh, pick and choose one of that.
Got it. uh, Relatively, is Airflow easy to orchestrate because you also need to write something in Python?
Yeah. Like I mean, like I feel like Python is a easy language to learn, and also you can definitely use multiple operators in Python to
Mm.
orchestrate data pipelines.
Mhm.
I just find it a little bit difficult, right, when you work with a lot of branching. Let's say task A depends on task B and task C, right? Or
Mm. Mm.
task A spins up task B and task C, right? So you have to little bit be careful using those operators, because in Python it's not uh, if you write the Airflow code in Python, it's not readable straightforward, right? You have to
Mm.
have Airflow knowledge, good Airflow knowledge,
Right. Right.
to understand that.
So, as you also talked about, I understand how Spark debugging is difficult at times. Like, usually, I typically go to the executor logs, driver logs, see if there are any failures. If it is not there, then go to the, as I said, maybe check the if JVM is loaded, or maybe look at the Spark plan, how the query is executed, all that. I mean, this requires a lot of time to understand how you actually navigate to find the issue. But like as you said, a lot of people are running into it. So you also have any documentation where you maintain, where you keep this updated, like the issues that you faced and how did you find the solution, or how can someone learn when, like, who is new to Spark?
Sure. Like we try to maintain, we try to do weekly demos or bi-weekly demos within the team, right? So let's say
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
I have worked on some issue, I find it interesting, and if others could benefit from that, I will or somebody else in our team, right, whoever works on that issue, they will
Mhm.
give out a small demo kind of thing and to the entire
Got
team,
it.
so
Got it.
that they will learn, and we will also like document it, with short description.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense. So, do you also see any data drift? Like columns are changed, columns are missing from the source data, uh, like schema is modified, or even like that also brings another point. How do you actually validate the data? Let's say source has 1,000 records, but your destination has only 500 records. So there is some like uh, there is some parity mismatch, right? So how do you actually validate? And do you see such issues a lot?
Yeah, like I mean, so in the input data, right, we receive raw logs to process. So in the input data, we have seen some instances where the data is cut off at unexpected fields.
Hmm.
Because of that, our pipelines failed, right? Because some validations were failing, and as a result, we were the entire pipeline had come to a halt.
Mhm.
We went and saw the issue. So like sometimes the the logs were not easy to understand, so we had to dig deeper and try to understand what could be the problem. And then when we when we dug deeper, we understood that the columns were chopped off
Mhm.
unexpectedly by the servers,
Mhm.
and we kind of informed the upstream team, and they made sure they flushed out properly, and issues were fixed that way. That is like one formatting thing, right? And another thing is, let's say we were expecting IDs, right? So we were expecting user IDs. We never expect user ID to be null, right? So that sort of thing, and if a we have a critical checks for that. So if
Hmm.
some of the critical checks are failed, then we will halt the pipeline then and there, right? So
Got
that
it.
sort of things are taken care in the pipeline design,
Mhm.
and that is how we try to find out any drifts in the data.
Got it. So if I understand it correctly, you have critical checks definitely in the like pipelines, or like however you program Spark or Airflow, right? But do you also like let's say Spark supports as far as schema evaluation, like new columns are added, so by default you don't need to do any processing for it, but maybe you need to output that in like you might want to change the column name for it for the end user. uh, Not sure if that comes under actually data drift.
Yeah, exactly. Like we always have an understanding with the team, and they make sure they communicate ahead of time,
Mhm.
and we always get prepared for that, right, in advance, and we don't see any surprises. The surprises I would
Okay.
see are cutting some raw logs at unexpected fields, right, and
Hmm.
those sort of things. And if we want to deliver data
Mhm.
in some other fashion, so there is another system called delivery system. That
Mhm.
system makes sure uh, those sort of requirements are met to other stakeholders.
Got it. Got it. So the delivery system actually does the validation, like let's say compare source versus destination number of records.
We kind of do that in the processing itself. The
Okay.
delivery system, it's mainly for honoring user spec, right, or customer spec. I want okay, in this data set I want, let's say, only 5 columns out of 10, and I want this one of them, this column should be renamed to something else, right, and the data should be encrypted, and it should be written with some other assume role, right? All
Hmm.
sort of customizations are not taken care in delivery system.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Interesting. Okay.
Rishi, do you have any follow-up questions or any other questions?
Uh, no, maybe like so on the volume side, right? Like when you see, you must be having like whenever there is unexpected sort of volume is coming, right? How do you handle, like, do you pre-plan it, or of course there is this auto scaling is there, but do you see issue around that in some sense?
Yeah, yeah. Like recently, we have seen an issue on Sunday, right? So on Sunday here there was some sports, right? NFL. So
Mhm.
during that time, like we have search, we have like seen 3x search in incoming data, and our clusters were not handling that because mainly our clusters were static in a way, right? In terms of size, we haven't like migrate all of pipelines to EMR. So one of the pipelines was failing, right, because of heavy search in the data, and we had to dig deeper and find out where the issue was. So we were always seeing like out of memory in the driver after several hours, and at the same time we were under pressure to meet the SLA. um, so like at a time where it was failing, the entire team was monitoring what was happening, and we observed that on Spark UI none of the executors were progressing.
Hmm.
Only driver
Oh,
memory was doing some sort of work. And what I did, I was monitoring driver memory using Linux utility called top command.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was monitoring it, and I gave, let's say, 7 gig to driver memory. It was using all of that at that time, right? When it was
Got it.
about to fail, it was using all of that 7 gig memory,
oh,
right? So that's when we thought, okay, I think there is something going on in driver, and we need to increase the driver memory. And in the end, like we increased it to 10, and that took care of the problem. And job finished, like that particular action finished in like
oh.
2 minutes when it before it was failing like even after 20 minutes, right? So it all it needed was more memory, more driver memory, which was not visible in the raw and driver logs.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So when we dug deeper after the resolution, the issue was there were like some serializations were happening. So like serialization is always initialized from driver to all executors on, right? So that serialization was taking more time, and that was the reason, and which was not easy to understand.
Okay.
Got it. So that, I mean, that explains why the executors are not progressing, because it doesn't have anything to work on.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Another thing, like, so when the data engineering team commits the SLA, right? Like, we will deliver the data in 1 hour. How that part being decided? Like, is it something on the business requirement, like hard business requirement, that it has to reach in 1 hour, and then data engineer has to optimize in a such a way or come up with the solution, or like just wanted to understand how that discussion like looks like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That is a kind of a hard SLA, right? We have to meet that 1 hour SLA, right, to process 1 hour of raw logs in 1 hour, like within the
Hmm.
1 hour. That's a hard SLA because like once that hour is over, you always have another hour to process, right? So it's always a spiraling thing. So we have that hard SLA. To honor that, we either have to maintain a bigger cluster, or we should do some sort of like better parallelism in the job.
And do you do any sort of benchmarking to figure out, like, okay, if this much of data, this type of cluster, like, have you come up with something like metrics, or how do you figure that part?
It's mostly like our history of working with the data, right? So let's say like x amount of data, even if we receive 2x of amount of data, this cluster can handle, right? So so we with that we will be prepared always, right? So during the season, right, so we have our own team guideline that during sports season we get prepared for 3x of data, right? So that sort of things, rough measures we have in the team.
I see.
So I mean, this is like I'm very curious about. So I understand, let's say you have more volume of data, maybe you can increase the number of executors or number of executor instances, or if the cluster is enabled for auto scaling executors, it will automatically do that. I'm actually, now I'm thinking about, there is no such thing for driver to like proactively look at driver, what's happening there, can I increase the driver memory or something like that, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, you have you have all kind of auto scaling measures in
Yeah.
executor level, right? But not at the
Yeah,
driver level. Yeah,
nothing at driver level. I know, like if you have retrace at the like application master level, if Hadoop is your platform, like the resource manager, like An or something is your resource manager platform, uh, there is no other way. It just retrace, I know, but it doesn't scale.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Driver is always the single point of failure, right? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, something to think about. It's like it's
That's an interesting thought, I would say, right?
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Like why no one have ever tried to solve that actually? Maybe some other way, right? At least uh, you can do it proactively. Maybe okay, it is getting killed. If it will definitely know the metrics of JVM, so okay, I am utilizing some memory. Let me try to increase it.
yeah,
They're always upscaling the parallelism, but they're not really looking at driver. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
why I'm talking about this now is like recently I was also for one of our like ca- project, we are integrating with a Spark vendor. There also I observed it's always the driver that actually is the bottleneck. I want to run these many concurrent jobs, driver is a bottleneck. I want to run this much of volume, driver is a bottleneck. But I don't know, no one is trying to solve it. Maybe, yeah, let's see if we can put this idea in the Spark community, see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. I think like in Kubernetes like, orchestration, right, with Spark.
Mhm,
I think I mean I don't know. I'm just guessing that there might be more pods uh, for driver that might handle this kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not sure.
but that is still not at a job level, right? Like you can trigger any number of jobs as many number of drivers, but not at single job level that you can upskill.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
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 I'm
because
I'm
there is
still,
always one driver, right? Like for to
yeah,
that job. So yeah,
I'm
even
pretty sure this is something we have done at Cubol. Like you can launch driver on any node. It's not always, it shouldn't be always the master node. You can launch it on any worker node. So yeah, I kind of like it. I'm missing it in other Spark vendors though. But
yeah.
yeah, so I mean that that brings up another question, right? Other than your EMR, or like which Airflow vendor are you using? Are you using the open source Airflow and Spark? Did you try out any other vendor other than EMR?
No, most of the teams use EMR as a vendor and also open source Airflow, right? It's mostly open source Airflow.
Okay, so is it managed by any other team? Like, do you have team that manages Airflow, or you just fork it out of the open source and use it?
There are some teams who facilitate Airflow clusters for us, and I think they fork from open source and they maintain for us. We manage only EMR clusters.
Got it. Got it.
so do you get involved in like experimenting with the tools, or for example, like if you find something new in the market and you want to integrate that in your process, uh, how does that work?
I mean, like yeah, like whenever we have to, we usually try to go by the requirements, right? So whenever we do the low level design, and we try to see, okay, for this particular best use case, right, which fits the bill. We try to evaluate multiple options, and that could be old component or old system, or it could be the very latest, right? So we try to evaluate and whichever facilitates our requirement, and we would usually go with that.
Okay. So currently, I see the pipelines that you design are basically batch only. There is no streaming processing that you do out of Spark, or any other team might be doing it.
Not really. Like I mean, personally, I have like very less experience with working with real time data.
Mhm.
I mostly dealt with batch applications, batch jobs.
But does your team or product team see anything in it? Like, are they foreseeing that you might want to use real time data for maybe the quick analytics or mm, whatever, right? The quick ads that you want to generate.
I mean, like they have some features in the pipeline. I think we might get to work on them in the upcoming quarters, but not immediately.
Okay, but your team is going to deal with it anyway.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. So, what else, Sandeep? So, how do you keep yourself updated? Like, technically or non-technically, whatever, right?
Yeah, like one way, right? Like whenever we work on some issues, right, or when we may have to maintain data pipelines, I try to use that as an opportunity to learn something or automate something. That is one of the ways to upgrade ourselves. And
Mhm.
also when we follow communities, right, Spark community, we Spark community, or any other community, right, open source community, they would recommend something as a tool or as monitoring. I We try to usually, like, whoever finds it, they try to propose to the team, and we try to introduce to the team, and make our lives easier that way.
Got it. Like, do you have any YouTube channels that we can follow if you're interested in learning, or any person on LinkedIn, anything that we can follow, like Twitter handle?
I usually follow like most of the Spark open source Spark sessions conducted by Uber or Databricks, right? So they usually every year they do some kind of sessions, right, on big data. So
Got it.
I mostly follow them on YouTube. And also we like before COVID, we used to get some passes for attending those sessions in person, but
Mhm.
not anymore now.
Understand. So how do you like, how do you subscribe to them, like Uber or whatever, right? Databricks, like.
I usually like try to read mostly like on Medium.
Mhm.
So like Netflix does a lot of publications on Medium, right? So they have a Netflix engineering channel, Netflix data engineering channel, or Uber data engineering channel. I subscribe to all of them on Medium, and that way I read end to end. Like they propose a problem and how they solved it and how are they monitoring it. They try to give out as much details as possible. I usually read their blogs on Medium, engineering blogs.
Mhm. So you also follow any meetup groups?
Not here, not like it's not happening here because of COVID. Otherwise, like in Bay Area, like there is a active community who does a lot of meetups, regular meetups on weekends. But yeah, like yeah, from COVID onwards, yeah, nothing is happening.
Got it. Got it.
Okay. So, Sandeep, if any freshers or any new folks or even existing folks who want to move to data engineering field, do you have any suggestion or path which they can?
If for freshers, they should definitely sharpen their skills on Python and SQL. And if they can, they should start with Spark. If they find it difficult with Spark, they can definitely should learn Hive and Presto, right? It's They're queryable languages, and you can learn from that, and also understand what's happening behind the scenes, right? So those are like guidelines for a fresher. Python, SQL, and understand Hive and Presto, how they are working. And if you
Mhm.
can, like Spark would be better, right? So people test on Python and SQL mostly, right? If people can show Spark skills, that would be great, right? For experienced people, I assume like they sharpen their skills on Python and SQL, and it would be great if they can clear some sort of Databricks Spark Developer certification, right? So that
Mhm.
tells that shows that you have Spark skills, right? as an experienced person and you are interested to work on big data related stuff, right?
Thanks.
Yeah.
And yep, I think we are reaching to the end. Any last thought, Pradeep, you want to?
I have one like curious question again. So you said your big data platform team, like they maintain the data, but they also have a provision to create pipelines. Like what do they use to create pipelines?
I mean, like they maintain the clusters, right? They maintain the clusters. Their primary motto is to facilitate all, facilitate the platform for all employees in the company, right? That is their primary intention. We
Mhm.
use that platform to store the data in S3, and
Okay.
also we make sure we add the partitions hourly and daily, so that
Mhm.
data is automatically fetched on dashboards or on engines, right? Or on the Hive metastore can recognize those partitions. That sort of things we do. We make sure that.
Okay, so it's ready, like it's tailor made to query or create dashboards or whatever. But I'm just expecting some widgets like pipelines that you like modify the data or something like that.
No, that is a processing job, right? That's a
Yes,
functioning
yeah.
of a partition processing job. We kind of take care of that in the EMR.
Okay.
The big data platform is like Superset. It's a Superset open source project, and that is
Mhm.
mainly for querying. It's not meant for doing anything with data pipelines.
I
Got it.
see.
Got it. So you do not store the data in any like the traditional data warehouses. It's mostly uh, like object stores.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, object stores like S3. Yes. And we try to maintain we try to maintain the traditional schema like star snowflake schema or star schema like that.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah, thank you guys. I think this was like a really nice talking to both of you, and I've like got very interesting questions. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, like hopefully like a fresher or an experienced person find this recording interesting and move to data engineering, and I feel we all will be satisfied with that.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
And then thanks to you for giving time on Saturday, right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's a big of a commitment, and yeah. But thank you so much.
yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you
Thanks.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.